I was saying as you were all gathering that this article, I was saying that I highlighted the important parts and the whole thing is highlighted. So what I think I'm going to do, because this article I could do, this is really about training and building a relationship with any dog. The title kind of sounds like problematic dogs, and no dog's perfect. So all of our dogs need our help on some level with something. So without further ado, I'm going to go to the article, and I'm going to do something that I haven't done before, and I am going to read the last paragraph first. Not every dog was born to do agility, but marvelous things can happen in the hands of a dedicated, understanding trainer. Learning what we can change and accepting what we cannot change is not only the key to getting the most from our dogs, it is our obligation to them. So I've been talking in the study groups lately a little bit about changing my language. And I'm just going to double check that you guys can all see the article now. You can? Oh, you cannot. I have not. No. Okay. That's because I skipped a step. Now, can you? Can you see the article? Anne-Marie, if you would nod. Margaret, can you see the article on the screen? You can.
Yes, we can see the article.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to minimize one of these. Great. So I've been talking a little bit lately about changing my language, which is hard for me because I've spoken my language in dog training for 30 years and in animal training since I was 5. That's when I first started competing with animals. But this first sentence here, it says, many people would like to get a little more out of the dog they have. And that's real typical language in our world. We want to get. We want to get more. And I've been having these wonderful conversations with a colleague about, yeah, well, how much more do you have to give? So it kind of made me think of good old JFK, and ask not what you can do for your, what your country can do for you, but ask what you can do for your country. So not ask what your dog can do for you, ask what you can do for your dog. So what I want to teach in this decade, I joked in one of my articles about the first decade of my career, I was in the comfortable shoes of a sponge. I just wanted to soak up everything, and I just followed people around like a puppy and learned everything I could from as many sources as I could. And the next decade, I spent in the comfortable chair of a know-it-all. You know, I knew everything. I had learned it all, and I could tell you anything you needed to know. And now I'm in this wonderful place where I know what I know, but there is not a dog that I don't meet that doesn't teach me something, a little bit of a different twist or the way they see it. And the wonderful thing about training multiple dogs is you have a way that you like to train. I have a way that I enjoy the most, but it doesn't work with every dog. I have to be willing to be flexible so that I can give my dog what they need to give me what I'm looking for. So I'm kind of moving away from the language of what can I get out of you today. It just has a little bit of a different feel to it. So the article is really could have been 2 articles. You're probably seeing that because one is doing a little bit of hand-holding for the person that is struggling with this whole thing, this whole agility game and what it takes. And when you do have this dog that isn't quite living up to what you had hoped for. It happens. So it doesn't mean you don't love them. And it makes me sad that our sport makes it so that we can't be honest sometimes about what's happening. So there's a checklist here. Um, I want to look at one more thing here before I go down. Um, your emotional investment in your dog's success can end up being a double-edged sword. The rich rewards of progress and training will leave you feeling hopeful and encouraged, but the times when the new behaviors do not shine through in competition can leave you feeling very discouraged. And one of the things about competing, I keep talking about this new program I have coming up, which is really kind of my whole philosophy, which is the 3 hats that divides every agility lover into a competitor, a trainer, and a handler. And when you love training, everybody seems to dig, various levels with different dogs. I change. I happen to be super lucky. Maybe that's why I've been doing this for 30 years, because I love training and I love handling and I love competing. I love all 3 of them. If you asked me which one I like the best, I would have a really hard time answering you. But most of the people I work with, they can tell me. And it's usually one they love and one is, they enjoy it. And then the other one is not so much. So I think if you're going to compete, there's getting on board with balancing those 3 things out can make the experience just way more fun, way more satisfying. So this whole business of 2 steps forward, 1 step back, you got to set yourself up for that being a reality. And it's really with any, young dogs fall into that category. I love it when I say, I really think I turned a corner this weekend. I got 3 cues that I'll go for, when they're in open and it's like all coming together and novice was smooth. And then the dogs really start asking questions. They're like, well, shoot, mama, I could go a little faster. I can't keep all the bars up if I do, of course, but I could. Would you like me to try that? And we call that the wheels coming off. So you get up around 10 dogs in 30 years and it's all just like part of the journey, and you don't get it gets easier. But I think that I would like to be able to help people get to that soft mental landing right from the start. It can be however you want it to be. So you need to be invested in order to sink in the required effort into training of the work. But your investment road, if your investment road leads you to expectations for a consistent higher level of performance, you could be setting yourself up for bitter disappointment. And then I went so far as to quote Gandhi, which was pretty big, and if you're just writing about dog training. But I do believe that satisfaction lies in the effort, not the attainment. Full effort is full victory. So that's back to that enjoying the road and enjoying the training. And just when you get to that show, having no expectations, just say, what do you got? What can we do today? What's in the stars for us today? So the things to remember, let me see if I've got, I'll go through them. I want to give you guys plenty of times for questions. So this whole thing about, I see folks get, so you guys, all these articles are based on personal experience as well as the experience that I've had with my students. So every single one of these are common things that I have seen throughout my career. So it's cool that some of them are like, well, that's not me, or who thinks like that? It's okay. It might even give you compassion for your fellow competitors to know that some of this stuff is what people are actually going through. But I get that all the time. I'm so, I put all this work in, and it almost feels like if you go to class and you pay the money and you get up and you drive to the show and you do everything the instructor says and you do everything you think your dog needs and you do and you do and you do and you do, that it should all just work out like you deserve it or something. Well, it just doesn't work like that because they're little dogs. So if you didn't enjoy the drive in the day with that dog in the sunshine, I can come talk to me and maybe I can help you get there, because the outcome just isn't determined by how far you drove or how much money you've spent or how much you've got into it. The let go of terms like blowing me off, if you know me at all, that's one of my least favorite things to say about a dog. Your dog is on your side. He really is all the time. There's no value for him to be your enemy. Give him the benefit of the doubt. If he's struggling with something, there's a really good chance it's not his fault. He's not bad. He's not out to get you. I have so many folks that they they really they really can get angry at the dog. They can really show bitter disappointment. And there's just, you won't love your sport anymore. Don't go there. Save yourself. So I says, understand some of your training projects that are works in projects that might be works in projects for the dog's entire career. Rome was not built in a day. So last week we talked about a blank issue that falls into this. So if somebody wants to type, and Anne Marie can tell me if anybody remembers last week, what I would have said was this project that would be in progress for the dog's entire career. I called it your dog's blank issue. There's no prize. Don't get excited. Never forget what you love most about your dog. You have some mental strategies around. If you're showing a dog that you're not getting, it's not going the way you had dreamt when you ordered him as a baby, have some mental strategies for yourself. Cookie cutter approaches might not work. You guys, you may have to seek out somebody that's got experience with the level you want to go with the breed you have, or experience with the level you want to go with the issue you have. Okay? There's fabulous trainers all over. There's lots of good information on the internet. But if that individual does not have experience with your breed and or your issue, and in getting a dog with those things to where you want to go, you may need to do some troubleshooting. You don't have to leave your trusted instructor that you love, but you can, and if you go somewhere else, talk to your trainer about it. I want to know what my students are. Yes, go find 6 heads are better than 1, of course, but let me know what you're thinking so we can problem solve together. We already talked about expectations, and then it's just be honest with yourself. You guys, I've met some people students that were disappointed with their dogs all the time. It was like they're not putting out enough. Well, you should see him at the park. You should see him run at the park. He's got more than that. He acts like he does better in this situation, does better in that situation. And some of these folks, I have come to learn, because I ask a lot of questions, were hardcore competitors. They're in those 3 hats, that the handler, trainer, competitor. They love to compete, and a lot of them competed at a high level in something else. And for that, they have to get honest with themselves about, can they truly be okay competing in the middle of the pack? Can they get that enjoyment from that performance? I'm a performance orientated handler, and now that the speed in the sport has gotten what it is with the running dog walks and just the almost frenzied runs, I'm not looking to be at the top of the food chain in the sport anymore, because I like a performance that's controlled. I like it. That's what I do. It's my obedience background. So I like fast and I like winning, don't get me wrong, but there's other parts about the performance that I had to come to grips with that could keep me from being the fastest dog out there. So there's agility it offers so much more than being at the top. The camaraderie and the goal setting with the individual, getting your weed pulls just a little better, or getting an entry. The bars, the jumping, the turns, the pulls, the contacts. There's so many places to have pride in performance and make improvement in performance, and it not have it be this all or nothing soul-filling cue rate. I've had many dogs that I loved competing with and loved training, loved performing with, that did not have Brink put me on the map. He won nationals twice. He was awesome. He put me on the map, but he had very low Q rate. He never got a mock. My Brink that put me on the map never got a mock because he dropped a bar here and there. So I diverge. I'm just saying that this whole business of being happy with the dog that you have, you can get to a mental place. And if you can't, being honest with yourself and looking into another dog is okay. A couple of these folks, I'm like, why don't we just get yourself another dog? Well, I can't have two dogs. The husbands never leave. I'm telling you, they do not move out. The roommates do not move out. Just get the next dog. They're mad for a couple of weeks. Then you tell them you'll get rid of the dog. Then they love the dog. The dog doesn't go anywhere. I've seen it 1,000 times. Okay, now let's move on to the dog a little bit here. So that's your mental, that's your rah mental stuff about when you're not absolutely thrilled with the dog that you have. So let's go back and look for the real problem. Learning how to motivate dogs, learning how to give them what they need, learning how to address subtle changes is a skill. And I've been talking about this. There's a program coming out called Ocean that is going to address all that. It's actually going to be a course about training with addressing the dog's mental state the highest priority, whether it's arousal or engagement. And I'm excited about it because I've been writing about it for years and years and years. So some of the things that could affect performance are balance, coordination, fitness, rhythm, lack of comprehension. Who's she talking about? The dog or the handler? Talking about the dog, but it could be both. There's so many dogs that knock bars that are not fit. They have owners that work long hours during the week. They have family members at home that give them treats, and they are fat, and expecting them to keep 20 jumps up in 4 or 5 runs. It's the weekend warrior syndrome. So who cares if you have a great run and you have a bar down, you guys? Really, who cares if you had fun? And that whole Q thing is it's such a block to everything the sport is. And then there's just physical and mental sensitivity. So lack of physical ability can decrease drive. That's a big one. So if your dog doesn't have physical abilities, that can be a drag. He might need you to make things easier for him. Lack of drive can decrease physical ability. If you're not in the mood to run hard and you're heading toward an A-frame at a lope, that's going to increase difficulty. That's going to affect mental state. Everything affects everything. They're one total being, just like we are. Do not try to make excuses for your breed and at the same time be honest about the limitations. I would have written that differently if I had it to do over again. So the whole making excuses for breeds thing, I was fortunate enough to train with a woman named Pat Cook, whose claim to fame is multiple perfect scores in obedience on breeds like long-haired Dachshunds, Greyhounds, Rottweilers, Lhasa Apsos. I hope I said that right. Anyways, her claim to fame was getting the most out of the non-traditional breeds. And that's where I learned to break things down for these non-traditional breeds, to get into their little psyches, to see what makes them tick, to honor their little brains, to honor their little bodies, to understand all of their limitations, to understand all of their strengths, and pick and get a terrier to get a UDX. They were not bred for that crap. And when you get these breeds to do things that the other breeds were designed for, and you can't rush it and you can't force it, and you've got to be sweet and understanding and ask question after question. So, a lot of people will make excuses for the breeds, but they also it just takes longer a lot of times. So understanding the limitations means that you understand that the that the scent articles are going to be harder on some breeds than it is for a Basset, and that weaving is harder than for one dog than another. And then there's all of you folks that stick with the same breed, you know the differences within the breed. So that's honoring the dog as an individual, forgetting breed entirely. When in doubt, decrease the degree of difficulty. I used to make a joke. I taught at the Power Paws camps for years, and I used to have a joke that I could help a dog with weave pole entries by lowering the jump heights. And it's almost true, you guys. It's almost true. If you've ever done tests that were multi-subjects and just a little harder than you were ready for, you might have been able to do that degree of difficulty if it was just math or just science. But when the weave pole is entry's a little bit hard, and the contact obstacle was at an angle, and mom put the jump heights up 2 inches that day, and it's just a little harder and a little harder. And a lot of times if you just make the damn course easier. I love international handling. Those of you that train with me know I love it. I love hard courses. I love backsides, but we are teaching dogs hard stuff too soon. It is a mood killer. They just want to run and do the next logical thing. And then when you have handlers that are less than stellar, that, you're getting late information, it's too hard. The course is too hard. The obstacles are too hard if you're fat. And talking about the dogs, says me that's put on a few pounds. So there's lots to think about. There's lots to think about when you're making decisions for these little dogs. So try not to, so we talked about the breed, decreasing the degree of difficulty. And then we move on to the goose and the gander. I kind of talked about that already. I think you all know what I'm talking about. It's just all of the dogs are individuals. So the nervous, the worried, and the shy. Step one is being able to recognize an uncomfortable dog when you see it. Being able to recognize an uncomfortable dog when you see it. That's going to be part of Ocean. It's going to be a really big part of Ocean, because uncomfortableness in a dog, by the time you guys are pretty savvy being agility people, but I did 20 years of pet training before I did agility training. And dogs can be waving some pretty big white surrender signs for quite a while before they can get a human to notice, especially at the dog park with Starbucks are involved. But even at the agility trials, you guys, I see my friends too. And there's been, oh my God, I had somebody at a trial once come up and go, your dog's taking a dump. I'm talking to somebody. I don't notice that my dog is taking a dump on leash next to me. So that's what you call distracted, right? So, and I'm a professional, and that happened to me. So getting distracted at shows is real easy to do. And when you've got a dog that's uncomfortable at the show, it's like anytime that you were really uncomfortable with something and you were trying to have somebody get you out of a situation and they didn't, and you know what that feels like. So that being able to give that dog your full attention is a big part of the deal, and learning his little particular. People that do scent work get good at learning how to read dogs. I have some friends, top people in agility, that now do scent work. Pratamo Kantala is a friend of mine that is a top level scent work. And what she tells me about what they have to learn about reading their dogs, it's like we should have to be able to be that in tune with our dogs to be successful in our sport. But we can yell and, clap and do all these other things. So we're not as obligated to be tuned in to their little needs. What's happening when you notice what your dog needs is you're building trust. So while the dog is developing coping skills, he's going, holy mackerel. She knew, she saw that I was worried about that dog, and she put herself in between us. And this is when dogs stop reacting at trials. And you know, I've taken very reactive dogs from students, and the students are dumbfounded because it's like, oh my gosh, he's like a different dog. And that's because the dog can tell that I am scanning everything, and I'm calm, and I'm completely confident that I'm not going to let anything happen to that dog. And if the dog overreacts, I'm going to stop it. So he doesn't have to worry about fighting for himself, because it's not going to be allowed. And he doesn't have to worry about creating space for himself by being a jerk, which is what they're doing. And because I'm going to do it for him, because the minute I see something, I create a little space, and they're like, oh my God, she's driving the bus. She sees what I'm worried about. So this is the benefit, this getting the dog confident and this building of this trust that's happening when you take responsibility for your dog's environment when they need you to. So space is your dog's best friend. Use it to create comfort. And you can start with 5 feet, lop on 10, lop on 20, go out to the parking lot, keep asking, are you okay now, pal? Give him a minute. He's going to tell you yes or no, loud and clear. The leash can be another good friend. Used incorrectly, it can backfire. So leash aggression, it's a whole nother subject. Don't spend too much time giving strong or prolonged encouragement. So you guys, that's when we start lying. It's one thing to say, hey, bud, you're okay. Come on, pal. And invite the dog out of his distress. And sometimes they're like, oh yeah, I was being a little over the top, or I have no problem saying, do you want your ball? Do you want your cookie? I like it when I'm stressed if somebody offers me a glass of wine, not so much anymore, or a trip to the movies. I don't think that distractions, I think you have to honor and get that space in there, but I also think it's okay to I want my dogs to have a chance to assess what's bothering them and make a decision. But if they're struggling too much, I will use toys and food literally to distract them, so I can build it up slowly in a more appropriate environment. I could talk about that all day long. So the problem is that when we start saying, you're okay, and we don't let up, the dog that isn't buying in, like, I am not okay, I am not comfortable, they start to feel pressure. It's like you're trying to talk them into feeling different. They're not buying into it, and it's putting pressure on them. And then they're feeling like, I'm doing something wrong. She's trying to get me to be different. I'm not good enough. And that's why it's just an invitation. You give it the college try, and then you cut your losses and go back to giving more stress. So don't feel like the more you jolly, the more you pressure, the more that you guys, it's either working or it ain't. Don't be afraid to cut your losses. A couple weeks ago, I had written something 2 weeks ago about sweeping cues under the carpet. And this part right here is about that. For those of you that were here, we talked about it a little bit last week too. Consistent and well-trained basic obedience skills are critical for these dogs. Too many people confuse being clear with a dog as being hard on the dog. In a misguided effort to protect the dog's feelings, they do not practice being consistent with cues. Being wishy-washy with criteria is the worst thing for these dogs. Let the dog gain confidence by learning. He cannot learn if you are not consistent. It's the greatest gift you can give. And what I'm talking about there is when the classic case is a little dog that struggles with the weep holes, and he's heading for the weep holes and he misses it. And they're like, don't make him wrong because he's soft and he's worried. So just pass the weep holes. You can only do that so many times, you guys, till the conclusion has got to be, I don't do these things. The dog is going to draw some conclusion at some point. So treating a shy or insecure dog like they're stupid is wrong. And if you've taught them something, showing them, I'm not going to be mad at you, and I'm not going to make you if you're melting down, but if you trust me, I'll wait for you, and you can do this. And that's the best thing you can do for that dog. If you're making too many things too hard, it's going to backfire. I already said that. But letting that dog get it right, like you say sit and they're like, I don't think I can. Just get a 2-second sit, but show them, help them. You can even tip them into the sit and hold them there for 2 seconds. Yay, you did it. You're so clever. And that's how they're going to learn that I can, even when I'm feeling. And then that's going to build the confidence. But if you tell them something and then you're like, oh, you're too this to be even to do a simple thing, they're going to get mixed up more. And what could be more worse than being a little bit nervous and then being confused too? Like, oh, I thought sit meant something about my butt, but I guess it doesn't now. And I'm worried and just, oh, okay, that thing. If there's one thing I am just so sure about, it's that. If the dog is not comfortable enough to take a cookie, do a sit, play, then he's too stressed to work. You guys, if you get to a show and your dog is freaked, don't go in the ring, pull. You'll feel good. You will drive home feeling good. You will, I promise you. Yep, my dog, I thought he would be. I was hoping he would be. He wasn't in the frame of mind to perform, and I didn't make him do it. Now, don't get me wrong. You can put 10 feet of space in there, try to get him on the ball, go sit somewhere, take him for a walk, give it the college try. I don't want everybody saying, oh, you're uncomfortable, let's go home. Oh, you don't want your ball, let's go home. I think that's a place that some advice is probably being misunderstood. But I'm saying if your dog, after a couple of hours of being at the show, if he's getting worse, he can't eat, he can't do a sit, he's too stressed to even interact with you, it's best to go home. Acclimate the dog to every new environment. All 4 sides of the ring. You notice a dog running a course and all of a sudden he gets to one side of the ring and it's like he sees dead people. Probably wasn't on that side of the ring at all that day. So getting your dog to all 4. I had that happen in a warm-up ring with Quilly Bear at the Invitational, and she was worried. I don't know if there was a smell. It was a bleacher side. So when she was done with her warm-up run, I went over and sat on that side of the bleachers for a couple hours and read the book till she was, why are we here? Lack of motivation, physical or mental. Try not to assume. Explore both. Your dog may be bored with your training style. Ouch. Ouch. Sometimes we can get a little boring. If you're not having fun, training's got to be the best part of your day. So there again, guys, do what it takes. Get yourself in the right mood, whatever that is for you. And try not to get too much accomplished in a session just because you rented the field and it's the only time you're going to get there. We end up putting too much pressure on the dogs. Your dog may not be getting paid enough to work. I can't tell you how many people bring crap treats to lessons. Your dog is already getting lavish praise for opening his eyes in the morning and drawing breath throughout the day. You're going to have to up the ante if you want top performance. So don't be afraid to get that cheese out, and don't be afraid to be liberal with your treats. I don't like to be a Pez dispenser, but it's something to look at. Rate of reinforcement, what you're reinforcing with, can make or break a training session. He may be getting paid too much to not work. I see that a lot. I see these Pez dispensers for the dog standing next to the handler. They are animals. There is learning stuff. Being hungry helps if you're working for food. Maybe the right key to building drive hasn't been found yet. Maybe you need to talk to more people, try more things, or be softer. Try less things for longer. Sometimes people try too many things too quick and they give up too quick. Learning how to play with your dog is required. Learning how to engage your dog with food, toys, or even just yourself. Tug is still the best way to build drive. If you've thrown the towel into tug, I've got lots of good ways. And I think we're going to need to do how to play with your dog. You guys, I don't consider a trained nose touch to the hand play. That's a trained cue. It can be very useful. I've gotten to resent it a little bit because I see folks, one, not rewarding it enough, and not insisting for correct criteria enough. And I'll say, play with your dog a little bit, and they'll get the dog jumping around, touching their hand. Engaging with the hand touch is not a bad thing, but I need to know that you can also engage your dog through the clap claw game, or the raspberry noises, or the I'm gonna get you, or some other games, or teasing them with the food, and get them. I want to see people get their dog excited before that food is in the mouth, before the tug toy is in the mouth. So if people are interested in play, if that's a problem, we could do a whole session on it. So I did do a session on engagement. So this building up a routine, we've talked about it a little bit. You know, there's got to be times where you're sweet talking your dog. I don't know if it's before the walk, or before dinner, or before they go for a swim or a ball game, but there's a time where you and your dog are like, he knows what you're thinking and you know what he's thinking, and you smile and you ask him a question. You know, you think, oh, you want to go, what do you know, it's when you're like laughing at your dog because he's like, I know what we're going to do now. I know what's coming next. So if you can isolate your demeanor, like tap into what you're feeling when that's happening, and then have a little catchphrase like mine is, oh, you wanna? Oh, you wanna? And they go nuts. They're like, yeah, I wanna. I don't even know what it is. So, you know, it's like, oh, and then I'll go, it's a toy, or, oh, you wanna? I got the ball. So, if you're not having fun like that in training, I'm afraid what happens is, I'm afraid of two things. I'm afraid that some people actually haven't learned how to play with their dogs. They actually don't. I know that some people, because I know we talk about it and they're not playing with their dogs. And then the other one is almost worse for the dog is that person that does play with their dog, and they do have this all this cool stuff at home. They have engagement at dinner time. They have multiple things that the dog is anticipating what is going to happen next, and they buy into each other, and they build this communication of what's going to happen next. And then that person that the dog loves and knows and interacts with and communicates with in this lovely way doesn't come to training. That person stays home. And then we've got uptight person that's trying to do what the mean lady that's running the school is telling them to do. And, you know, sometimes I get into these really serious conversations with my students, like, you know, we have to have this, and we're getting serious. Maybe it's about handling or a behavior. And we've affected the dog before. You know, they're like, oh, this isn't like going to the park. So got to be careful. Everybody's got to be careful. So this foreplay routine, I just can't seem to get away from sex jokes when I'm talking about dog training. I don't know why that is. It's probably something I should move away from, but that did come to mind. It's getting in the mood and staying in the mood and minding the mood, and knowing sometimes you can't get the mood back. So that's a lot like dog training. Building drive-through play is hugely rewarding, but you got to have fun. The independent dogs, I used that word for this article because we don't talk about those dogs much, and they can be high drive or low drive. And if you have one, you know, and there's certain breeds that are, you know, the Huskies, the Nordic breeds are classically known as independent, and they're they can be medium drive, they can be high, and they can be low, but they're always kind of what's in it for me. They're the show me the money, you know, show me the money. And if you don't get it just right, they're not going to play and manipulate. Some of those dogs are just getting all their needs met elsewhere. They're getting their meal. It comes in a bowl. It's room service, 3 squares a day. They get their ball at the park. They get to chase the neighbor's cat twice a day. The squirrel comes in once a day. Their exercise needs are met. And with some of those dogs, their world needs to be modified so that they're actually doing things for you. Susan Garrett's Rough Love, I that explains what I'm talking about well. I think some of the techniques could be more fun, and I think that Susan does things. The book was written a really, really long time ago, but the idea of shifting a dog, and then it's like, well, wait a minute, Sandy, I thought we were supposed to accept them as they are. Well, again, if you want to do agility with the dog that you have, I personally don't think there's anything wrong with trying to make that dog into something that he isn't. I've done it with lots of dogs, and I've done it with lots of students' dogs. And I think it's a beautiful thing. And I think if we can change a dog's mind about who they are or what their first preference is, if we can take a couch potato and get them to enjoy agility enough to not walk the course, I just think that's a beautiful thing. And I'll do it with food. I'll do it with a little bit of rough love. I'll do it with toys. And I don't mind brainwashing them a little bit if they can have the benefits of this. We all can't have 12 dogs. With that, we've got a full 15 minutes for questions. And thank you very much for going here with me. I love, there's lots of topics on the table now. Do we have any questions? I can stop screen sharing. Hold on just a second. Okay.
Sandy?
Yep.
Not a question, just a comment, and really just a thank you for this, because, you know, I have a medium drive dog and it's a first dog, and I'm not a very physically capable person. So in 5 years of agility training, the first 4 years, we had a 5% Q rate, but I never gave up because it was fun and I was having fun and I loved my dog and it was fun. And people would say, oh my God, how'd you do this weekend? I'd say, oh, for 15. Got a 25% Q rate now, but it's still, I really appreciate hearing this, because I get it. It's, this is my dog. This is the relationship that we have. We're having a great time, and yeah, we don't Q a lot.
It's been a pleasure and an honor to have you as a student, Margaret, because you do have it. You do have it figured. You do enjoy it, and it's good stuff, and it's stuff we got to talk about. Thanks for that.
Yeah, thanks.
Questions? We had a lot of subjects you guys, and one of them was, it's okay if you've got a dog you're disappointed in. It's a real thing. And if you want to talk about that, or if you want to talk about anything I talked about.
Yeah,
Let's work.
Kate.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to kind of follow up on the last comment. You know, my second agility dog that I thought I did a lot of research to get, but I did the wrong kind of research. It was not his sport, and I tried and tried and tried, worked with different people, but you know, at one point it just became clear to me that I was just really doing him a disservice. But what I wanted to say is I learned so much from that dog about my own training, and just that it's not about the cue. And so with my current little guy, that I just feel blessed to have, you know, it's just, let's go out and have fun. And fortunately for me, he loves it, and he's a quick learner. And it's I've just really been enjoying him and enjoying working with you with him. So there's a lot to learn from those dogs that aren't highly motivated.
I think in the article I mentioned about becoming a better dog trainer, and if you're interested in dog training as a career, or you guys, for me, training is about understanding the dog. So when you can, when you want to learn about dog training, an easy dog isn't the place to learn. So I really appreciate you reminding me and everyone that you will learn. The harder the dog, the more that you learn. And the things that you learn are not the things that you think you needed to know. And it can be very, very, very rewarding, but that going slow and letting that little flower unfold and being on the ride for the sake of the ride is really, really rewarding. But it does take a frame of mind. And it's especially hard when folks, it's their second dog, because when you get a second dog and you research and you're getting that dog for an agility dog, and you maybe didn't even want another dog, and you're doing it because of the sport, and it feels weird because up until this point in your life, you've gotten animals because you loved animals and because they were just quote unquote pets. And that's one of my least favorite sayings too, just a pet. You know, I had family members that just as nuts about their pets as I've ever been about a dog. But at any rate, a working dog is different. And then so you're out on a limb, you know, you're getting this other dog and you're worried about your first dog. And then it doesn't, you know, the dog doesn't pan out as you had hoped. And it's a big deal. It might even be a breed that you wouldn't have necessarily picked. And if I dare say so, go out on really far out on a limb here, I think that rehoming has a really bad name. And I have rehomed a couple of dogs that I had family members that were in love with them, and they went to a better place because they were going to go be number one, and at my house they were going to be number 3 because they weren't into what I was into. And did you find another sport for that second dog? Or did you, because you said that sport.
He did really, really well at obedience.
Oh,
but
cool.
Unfortunately, one of the problems was that he had gotten jumped a couple times and just had huge fear aggression. And so it was very hard in dog settings to really.
It became a lot to ask of him. Yeah.
Yeah. And Duffy is a rehome, although he was rehomed because he was too much for his original owners.
And isn't that wonderful?
It just worked.
Yeah. Rehoming can be beautiful. All right. Anybody else?
Hi, Sandy. My name is Tanya, and I have a question.
Yeah.
I have a young dog. She's a Great Dane. And, you know, she has a lot of environmental things to work through. And I've had the opportunity recently to go to very limited, I'll call them run-throughs, basically, where, you know, there's plenty of space kind of in a post-COVID manner, which has been kind of a good introduction for her to at least be able to realize, hey, I can relax on my mat. I can make some progress into my crate. What I'm wondering though is because she is overfaced when we get into the ring, in that she can't pay good attention to me, and I don't really have that expectation right now. But I'm kind of conflicted between two things, which is taking her in, letting her smell, keeping her on leash, letting her acclimate, which I think, you know, in the end is probably the right thing to do. But I also don't want to set up a precedent for, if we actually do ever get to trial, I go into the ring and I don't do any work.
Yeah, you are a smart woman. I have a student that always asks me, well, aren't you afraid that? Aren't you afraid that? And my answer is always, hell yeah, I'm afraid of everything. So that, Tanya, to me is too big of a risk to train her to go into the ring, an environmental ring, and sniff. So, but you can have your cake and eat it too. She may need to sniff a lot more and be in different environments. So what I would recommend is I wouldn't ask the agility obstacles of her until she's really, really strong on them. Till any agility obstacle you're going to ask of her is easy for her to do as a sit or some other fun hand touch. Simple, so that her level of training on the individual obstacles is actually higher, so that it's a piece of cake. So you're asking a piece of cake behavior. Until you're there, just going to the match or the class or the run through, whatever it is, and hanging out on the sidelines and messing about with her and playing with her and doing some chasings up and down, far enough away, of course, that you're not distracting somebody. And then when it's your turn, just do some stays and lead outs and release her to you and run, and or throw the ball. So if you were playing fetch or tug in the ring, that's, yeah, but I wouldn't take her in and just, I wouldn't, that's, yeah, I would let her sniff around the outside and then ask for some engagement, and then let her sniff and then ask for some engagement, and see how hard it is from her to make that transition. That's where the information is. Like if they're like, oh, I want to sniff. Oh yeah, I can interact with you. But when they're sniffing and you say, hey, you want to XYZ with me? And they're like, I can't, I got to sniff. Sorry, I can't. That's your information. And that is exactly what you want to learn. But yeah, running the risk of we go into the ring and completely disconnect is not where I would go. Does that help?
So yeah, that makes sense. I mean, the way I've been trying to handle that, you get a couple of turns, and our turn, the first turn, I don't take her leash off. I really have zero expectations. I think I want to start, instead of walking around with her sniffing, I think I kind of want to anchor myself and
We're
reduce.
talking about outside of the ring.
Actually, I'm talking about inside of the ring.
I wouldn't have her sniff inside of the agility ring.
Not at all. Okay.
No. That's a precious environment, and you're creating, you're painting a picture for her. And the picture is, when we're in this ring, we're working together. You sniff outside of the ring and you don't. So I would do a lead out and tease her with her toy and release her and just let her come to you. So multiple lead outs, or just, a kitty cat game with a toy, or, if you can pinch at her and get her to interact with you. But I wouldn't take her in the ring to sniff.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yep. Who's up? We got just a few more minutes.
I have a question.
Sure. Hi.
Hi. I have two dogs. One dog is a male dog. He's 1.5 years, and he's like, I want to go at everything. Then I have a 2.5-year-old. Anne-Marie was our instructor. She probably looks at me and remembers, oh God, there's that woman with that horrible dog. Then I have another dog at home. It's 2.5. And she's the opposite. She's like, oh, gee, that looks a little dangerous. I'm not sure I want to do that. So one of the things, she loves to jump. She's extremely smart. She's well tuned into me. She doesn't want to go into a tunnel. Do you have any suggestions for just generally what I can do to make sure, first of all, I'm not just wasting a whole lot of time and money on trying to train her, and second,
has she ever gone into the tunnel?
No, but she's only had, a couple of times in little introduction classes that people put on,
a hula hoop?
She goes in bushes to get her ball back.
Okay, so start with a hula hoop. I do things with my puppies when they're real tiny. I've got some video of this where I have them squeeze under my legs. But you can take a tunnel and take a couple of belts, not bungee cords, belts, and tie them super, super small and throw the food through. And I've had dogs in beginners classes that look like they would rather walk through fire than through that tunnel. They are like putting on the brakes and it's going to kill me. There's no way. And they go through once or twice, and we make them, or we, shorten it up and really coax them. That's what I mean by make. I mean, we put the food right on and they're like, and then they get a food for just picking up their foot. And they sometimes jump through and like, oh my God, it almost touched me. And then in 2 reps, they're like, oh, this is nothing. So you may just need to book a private and scrunch that tunnel up and spend the full, 30 minutes on just that. But a lot of times, if you can, get a hula hoop and have her go through that, and even crawling under a blanket, scrunching the blanket up and having her go holding it and having her go under it, you know, just going under and through anything.
Okay. Thank you.
What breed?
They're both German Shepherds with no coats. They're real short-haired German Shepherds.
Got it.
They're rescues.
Got it. Got it. Yeah, anything you can get her used to. Even people will say, well, it's the tunnel she doesn't like. Getting her used to those wobble boards and stuff like that. Anything different when you're out walking, you know, walk her on different surfaces, and all that type of stuff helps those kinds of dogs. But I've seen a million dogs not want to go on the tunnel. And the other thing we've done is covered the tunnel with a sheet to where it doesn't look, it looks different. Scrunch it up, scrunch it up as tight as it can go. Does that help?
Yeah, thank you very much.
Sure.
Yes, thank you.
Is our internet okay? Okay, I got a message that it was weak. Any other questions? We're at 5. We messed around a little bit. We can go a few extra minutes, but we are at 5 o'clock if anybody has to go. Do we have a subject for next week? Oh, that would be me that's supposed to know what the subject is for next week. You know what? I picked it and I can't remember. Oh, it's good. You gotta come, don't miss it.
I guess you'll find out on Facebook tomorrow.
You'll find out on Facebook tomorrow. You guys, this is free, but if you found value in it, it's a $25 suggested donation. There's a button on my website. That's acedogsports.com. acedogsports.com. And we're going to make these available. So if we're working on it, trust me, I know I say it every week, but we are. And then if you see others, and please, if you can't contribute, I get it. Let your friends know. I'm trying to build an online presence, and we would love to have your friends come no matter where they're at. Thanks a lot. See you next week.